Hello and welcome to Fantasy Football Hub. Now today we are doing another Q&A video. I've got Wes with me again, FPL Heisenberg. How are you doing today, Wes?
Yeah, all good. Cheers, Dan. How are you, mate?
Yeah, not bad. How'd you get on in game week 1?
Game week 1, yeah, it was pretty good. 102 points. I feel like it was a high scoring week, especially with engaged managers like ourselves. I think obviously Bruno, Salah and Antonio mainly did the business for me, and elsewhere other players ticked along as well. So yeah, definitely can't complain with that, mate.
Yeah, template worked. So yeah, I think all of us engaged managers, like you say, we're off to a flying start, and the only way is up, I hope.
Hopefully, mate, hopefully.
Right, guys, before we get started, if you haven't signed up to Fantasy Football Hub, if you haven't had the perfect start, maybe, it's not too late to sign up, guys. So you do get a load of benefits for joining as a Fantasy Football Hub member. You get Opta Stats, which is a tool I use all the time. You get the player comparison tool, the fixture ticker, the Rate My Team tool, pro team reveals to help you out to get you the best success from FPL we can possibly give you. So do go check out and do consider signing up if you haven't done already. But without further ado, I think we crack on straight in with some questions because there's a few recurring topics this week that a lot of people want to talk about, and we're going to do our best to try and help you out there. So first of all, guys, I've got a question coming in from both Ivan and Tariq, basically asking about Gundogan, whether he should be kept in, should he be removed from the team, is he going to start? Wes, what have you seen so far around Gundogan?
Yeah, so it's really weird when it seemed like he was going to be out for a little while, maybe with was it a shoulder injury? And then
a shoulder injury, yeah.
Yeah, and then I've seen him in pictures in like training with Man City, pictures of him like celebrating with it looks like they won a 6-a-side match in training, and Gundogan was on the winning team. So, you know, sometimes players are back in training and just running on their own, for example, which doesn't mean they're necessarily back. But if he's already, if he's training with his teammates in a physical contact 5-a-side game, which is what it looks like, then you've got to assume he's actually fit and you don't need to replace him. So how I'd play if I had Gundogan is I'd keep hold of him, because he's got Norwich this game week, a fixture that's the real reason you chose these Man City assets before game week 1. Really, it wasn't Tottenham, it was for Man City. Really, sorry, what am I talking about? It wasn't Norwich. So I'd keep if I had him. But I guess there are some replacements then, aren't there, in terms of other options in that sort of price bracket?
Yeah, there definitely are some replacements. If you do feel that maybe Gundogan has a minor injury or something, that might be enough to rotate him from the team. We know about Pep's rotation, of course. There are a few options, aren't there? Greenwood would be the one that would be first of my list. What about you, Wes?
Yeah, I really like Greenwood. I've got him in my team, so I guess for another one, I nearly went for Sarr. Well, everyone always says this, don't they, in terms of players they nearly went for who banged. But I did actually have Sarr in a draft of mine. So yeah, I like Sarr. Ben Rama obviously did well. And there's even, if you're thinking about freeing up some funds, maybe you want to have Lukaku in your team at some point, or Kane, you might need to take some money out of your midfield. So going Gundogan to someone like, is it Mbeumo from Brentford?
Mbeumo, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I'm awful at pronunciations, but he's about 2 mil cheaper, I think. So you could free up some money, and therefore when you do need to get Lukaku, or when you do want to get Lukaku or Kane in future weeks, you've got that money, which will be really beneficial. So yeah, there's a few options there. They're all pretty good options. And Mbeumo, just for me, I know a lot of us like myself have got Tony, so I wouldn't want the Brentford double up. If you haven't got Tony, you could definitely consider him.
Yep, definitely. But yeah, like you sort of said at the beginning, is Gundogan's injury that bad? I actually saw a photo. I think it might have been Raheem Sterling actually with his hand leaning on Gundogan's shoulder. So if it is a shoulder injury, yeah. If your teammate can lean on your shoulder, it's probably okay, you would say. Yeah. But yeah, guys, perhaps think about keeping Gundogan if you like. But we'll move on. The big question of captaincy has been asked by Kodir here. And I am going to read out a little bit about this question, because Kodir says he's about captaining Salah. He didn't score against Burnley in Anfield last season, which is true. And he didn't score any goal in the second round, game week 2, in the last 5 seasons. Is it true, and what is the solution?
I don't tend to worry too much about things like that in terms of like, has a player scored against a certain club? Excuse me. But fans being back in Anfield for the first time, a full house, in 18 months or something. Liverpool did have had a good pre-season. Salah's actually had a long break this pre-season as well. So and obviously we saw what they did against Norwich. Salah set up 2 and scored a nice goal as well. So I can see Salah doing well. I think he is a really good option. But equally, I think as long as you're going for either Salah or Bruno, there's nothing I'd say to sort of criticise those moves, of course, because they've both got decent fixtures and both amazing assets. If you're ignoring those two and going for a bit more of a punt, I think that isn't how I'd play it. I'd go for one of those two for me this week.
Yeah, fair enough. I think a lot of people have had that kind of concern about Salah's record against Burnley. I think, Wes, you're similar to me in the sense that I try not to look too much at specific records versus teams, because these teams, we're talking about, Salah not having a very good record against Burnley over the last 5 seasons. Burnley over the past 5 seasons have had slightly different styles. They've had different players. They've had different player availability, as have Liverpool. Things change time to time. So there are some examples of where, Kane versus Arsenal I would usually back, or Vardy versus Arsenal, or anyone versus Arsenal at this point, to be honest. But there are certain examples of players who do have very good records against certain teams, which I would take more, credence to. But Salah against Burnley at Anfield for the first time with that crowd, it's quite a mouth-watering thing. But if you're put off by previous Burnley going downs with Salah, then Fernandes is there as another option if you quite fancy Fernandes, particularly after his 20-point haul in gameweek 1. Really nice. Anything more on that before we move on, Wes?
No, I don't think so. It's it's fairly boring saying going for Bruno or Salah, but people would have said it was boring to say that before gameweek 1, but it's not boring when them points are rolling in.
That's absolutely true.
If you missed out on them, for me, I'm all about getting points, and if that means being a bit differential, then fine, or if it means being boring, then fine. Just don't worry about that sort of stuff. Just go for whoever's the best option, and those two are this week for me.
There you go. Okay, we've got this is a quite an interesting one, and I'm sure not everyone watching will perhaps know about this. This information is relatively new to me as well. I didn't know quite how extensive it was, but AJ and Baldwin have both asked about about some clarity around the availability of African and Brazilian players after the international break.
Yeah, so there's players like, it's difficult, isn't it? Because there's an international break and then they go to sort of red list countries, and that might mean they have to quarantine. So some big names which spring to mind who might have a problem there are sort of Salah and Rafinha. Elsewhere, they're a little bit more like, there's Buendia and Martinez from Villa, and a few others that aren't as well owned. Even Antonio might have to play for Jamaica in this international break. So
he's had a call up.
Yeah, it's one that you want to be monitoring. It's one you want to be, saving if you can save 2 transfers for that period, it will be beneficial. If you've got a semi-strong bench, like a half-decent 4.5 million defender, or maybe Amati's still getting game time or whatever, then you can kind of use your bench as well for that period, because everyone is going to be suffering. I guess another thing you could also look at that point, not now, but might be a chance to go. It sounds mad, but Salah down to a cheaper midfielder, maybe Son if that frees up enough money, and then getting Lukaku in at front. However, that if you do that, you kind of have to commit to not having Salah for a longer period of time, because your money will be moved from midfield up to a striker. So a little bit risky there, because we know how consistent Salah's been for 3 seasons. But yeah, I think watch that with keen interest, and hold as many transfers as you can for that period, or definitely don't. So if you haven't got Rafinha, for example, and you think, Rafinha's going to have a good few weeks, that might be true, but it's not worth bringing in Rafinha because he's going to miss out soon enough. So if you haven't got these players in your team, then don't bring them in, at least, so that when this period comes along, you can actually sort out your team a lot easier than those who've got loads of these players, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking through this list, and it looks like Liverpool in particular are going to be quite shocked by this. And Alisson, Fabinho, Firmino and Salah all out. So is that not only going to make a difference to, individual player availability, but also results, particularly for Liverpool, who I believe have a Chelsea the week before. I can't remember who they play that week. Is it Newcastle, perhaps?
Let's try and have a look now.
Hang on, I can find it fairly quickly. It's Leeds, which is a tough game as it is.
Leeds away as well, so it'll be at Ellen Road. Fans there will be bang up for it, and they'll be without, like you said, potentially without Salah, Firmino, Alisson, who's a big miss obviously in goal, and Fabinho, who's helps them keep clean sheets as well. So I'd be surprised if Liverpool get a clean sheet that day for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so yeah, definitely one to look at, guys. Obviously, you can see the list in front of you right now. I would say that these are not necessarily players to sell right now, but players to make sure you don't bring in and keep a very close, watchful eye on of trying to make sure you don't have too many and having a nice escape route planned in your mind, if you like.
Yes.
And we'll move on. And Wes, I've noticed during this video, you've already, you've touched on it a little bit already. I've been very tempted to segue to it, but Jordan has asked, how best would you fit in Lukaku into your team?
Yeah, so it's a conundrum that a lot of us have got. It depends how you're set up. So I'm seeing people say that they can keep Bruno and Salah because maybe they've got a kind of a Mahrez figure in midfield as well, and therefore it's a lot easier to to save 3 or 4 mil that you'll need. Whereas for me in my setup, that's not quite achievable. So I'd possibly have to lose Trent for a really cheap defender and also downgrade someone like Barnes. So yeah, it is a tricky one. I'm kind of hoping Lukaku stays quiet for a little bit, just gets a feel for Chelsea, and then in game week 7 when the fixtures turn really nice, jump on him. But I don't know, it's one of those where you can't have them all. So yes, Lukaku should score points over these next few, but I'm hoping my team and my cheaper strikers can get points as well, and then my big hitters in midfield can do well. So I don't think I'll be bringing him in the short term, but things change in FPL, so I don't know yet the best way of doing it. It's on your team structure. If you can keep Bruno and Salah and get Lukaku without disrupting the balance of your team too much, then that's the golden ticket, I'd say.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, there is a major fixture swing in game week 7 where Bruno's fixtures look not so good, and obviously Lukaku's fixtures look really good. So if you're a fixture type player and maybe Bruno's gone slightly quieter, if he's not banging 20 pointers every week, I'm sure there will be a temptation to, if you've got 2 transfers banked particularly, to downgrade in game week 7 Bruno down to a 6.57 million midfielder, and then you can upgrade someone like Danny Ings, if you've got him for example, up to a Lukaku. That could work pretty well.
Yeah, agree with that, mate.
Yeah, but yeah, there's the other option is just wildcard, change the structure of your team. I think game week 7 will be a popular wildcard week anyway, if you can wait that long. And
I think I haven't looked too far in advance, but I think is there another international break around that sort of time as well? So that can always be a handy time to, because almost players can be in some good form, then all of a sudden there's an international break, people go away, people get injured on international break, etc., etc. So you don't have to worry about your team getting ruined during an international break by these injuries or by these sort of COVID rules. You can then wildcard out of it and then set your team up. So yeah, wildcarding in either this early international break or the one, I could actually be wrong, but I think there's one around game week 7-8 time. Could be a really good move.
Oh, they're coming thick and fast, if so.
I know.
Yeah, but the game week 4 could be a good wildcard week as well, potentially, if you want to do it that way. Or, you've always got the option of a mini wildcard. If you can bank 2 transfers and take a -4, if you're that desperate to get Lukaku in your team, which we don't know, we could all be saying in 2 weeks that Lukaku is the absolute must-have player, and we will be that desperate. We've got to prepare for that eventuality, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's always good to have plans in FPL and also fluid plans that can change. So it all depends on your team. So like I said, with my team, maybe I'd have to downgrade someone like a Barnes and a Trent just to do it. But if those 2 start doing really well, then it might not be worth ripping those 2 out just to fit Lukaku in. So I'd then adjust my plan and maybe do the Bruno out move or whatever. Or I might go without Lukaku. So it's about having plans but being fluid and flexible to be able to change and adapt to what's happening in front of you.
I believe if you've got 0.5 in the bank, you can do Trent Alexander-Arnold down to a 4.5 million and Danny Ings or another 8 million striker up to Lukaku. So you could do that in 2 transfers technically if you've got 0.5 banked.
You could, but then it's all of a sudden Trent has one of those weeks where he scores a goal, gets a clean sheet, and you're like, oh, he's key again, essential. So it is tough, but maybe Trent's output should be good this season, but maybe it won't be. It might be beneficial to do what you just said, like you said, get a 4.5 million defender who won't do as well as Trent, but can get obviously some points. And if Lukaku absolutely outscores someone like Danny Ings, then it makes sense you judge the transfers as 2 players versus 2 players. You wouldn't just judge it on Ings versus Lukaku or whatever. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, it's going to be a nightmare. I think personally, I'm hoping that Lukaku doesn't do very well, so I don't even have to think about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway.
Makes it easy.
But no, every chance he does really well, and it's good to start thinking about it now. It really is.
100%.
Right. Well, I think we've covered probably the big topics of the week there with those questions. So thanks, guys, so much for sending your questions in again. We will be doing this every single week throughout the season, so do keep them coming. Plenty more to come throughout the season. Wes, you mentioned last time, there's so much to come on Hub this year, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, we're doing this every game week, and yeah, the amount of videos on Hub's YouTube channel has just gone through the roof now. I can't even keep up with it myself, and I'm well involved with Hub. So yeah, subscribe to Hub's channel, I guess, and you'll see us most weeks, and obviously look out on Twitter as well, because obviously we'll be posting there asking for your guys' questions, and then you can get your question answered live on the video.
That's exactly it. And of course, guys, don't forget to like the video before you leave as well. But that's about it from us today. So thanks very much for watching. Thanks for your questions. Thanks for getting involved. Always good fun to do these chats with you, Wes, every week. Really enjoying it so far. And I suppose, guys, we'll see you on the next one. See you later, guys. Bye-bye.
Cheers guys.